Well, hello and welcome. This is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and today we've got a very cool training for we're going to build and show you an email marketing campaign application that you can use directly from Excel to email all of your contacts at any scheduled interval. So stay tuned, it's going to be a great training. Alrighty, let's get started. Well, as I always like to do in my videos and training videos, let's go over why. Why would we want to create an email campaign management when there's lots of other tools like MailerLite or MailChimp or tons of others that do that for us. So why would we want to do that in Excel? Well, for one thing, obviously it's free. And while the others are free, we do have a lot of control over the content in Excel. We can keep our customer lists. We can use this combined with other Excel software, so it's really helpful if we've already got our customer list along with their email addresses in Excel. We can use that to our advantage by simply tacking on automated email campaigns. We can create several campaigns. We can create them quickly and easily. We can schedule them, or we can send them now. And we can also have a log so we know what was sent. And another feature that we could possibly do is if you see one of my past videos, you'll notice I had one video called the bit.ly link creator. If you were to combine that link creator with this, you could actually count the number of clicks per campaign. If you use a specific link per campaign, you could easily add on another column here and know how many times it was clicked. So it can be really powerful in Excel. And of course, we love Excel, so why not try this in Excel? So today we're going to show you how we did that. And it's basically, this application is comprised of three different parts. The first of which is simply a customer list. And all we have is our first name, last name, some information, and of course the all-important email address. And another thing is we have an opt-in. And this gives us to say no to a customer. When we put no in, that means that customer will not get any marketing emails. Customers have the ability to unsubscribe, and if they do, we want to make sure that we don't send them any emails in the future. So if this is marked as no, they would not get any emails. So that gives us the ability to send only those who have opted into our email list or not opted out. Okay. The next section is the campaigns, and this is the ability. We have the ability to create new campaigns where we can enter a campaign name. And what we do is we can also send to a customer type. And if you'll notice on the customer screen, we have a list of customer types here. And this gives us the ability to selectively filter out certain customers based on their type. And if we want to send emails to only one specific customer type, we can do that via this customer type here, or we can send it to all types. And then we can create a campaign name here. And all new campaigns have a status of pending because they haven't been sent yet. Once they're sent, they'll be sent as sent. And then we can give it a specific send on date and a send on time. So we can do this, and we can give it a time of, let's say, 7 o'clock p.m. All right, so we can give it a specific time as well. And that allows us to do that. We can also have the ability to display the emails, and for our purposes, we're going to display them. So that means when the emails are created, they're going to pop up on your screen. And this is something you might want to do just once or twice. But generally, when you're sending mails through Outlook, they'll be sent automatically without displaying if you unclick that. We have the ability to customize the subject and the message, and we have some variables. I've just added 2 variables in, but you can add more. So you can say something like, hi, first name, okay? And instead of the first name there, it'll actually show their first name. And then you can we can say welcome first name, and then you can put a comma, and then Alt-Enter to go to the next line below. Thanks for signing up. So let's see if I can spell it right. Up to our list. And then Alt-Enter, we welcome you here. All right, Alt-Enter again, and then thanks so much, Randy. Okay, so we can have our text, and then all we have to do is save and schedule or save and send. Just click save and send, and then boom, the emails are created, as you can see. All independent emails, so it's really handy. And if, of course, we have not selected the display, all the emails will be sent without them popping up. Not something you won't want to see all the emails you're sending, but maybe the first time you will want to see that, so that's important. Once all the emails have been created, they get tracked in an email log here. As you can see, they're all in the email log, so that's really helpful there. You can continue down with the formatting so you know what was sent out, when it was sent out, on what campaign, and to who it was sent. So that's really helpful. So let's go ahead and take a look under the hood and see how this was done. All right. First of all, in the campaigns, what we have is basically a few modules, and then we have some information. What I've done here is we have a customer list here, and what I've done is I've just given it 3 items and created a list called type. Okay, you can expand on this as much as you want, but that gives us a drop-down list in our customer information of customer types, and you can create any customer type you want, and or customer status, and continue with this list. And then what I've done here is, so what you want to do is you want to continue this, right? And under the formulas, name manager, I'll bring this over here. You see we have types, okay? And when we tab over, we'll see it these 3 fields. And that covers just A6 through A8. So you'll want to increase that if you have more, okay? And then what I've done is I want to add to this list, I want to add one more option, because in the campaigns, we've got all types here, right? So we want all types plus the leads, okay? So what I've done here is I've linked it, okay? This is just a link, okay? This is just a link. It's actually not a drop-down list. We can remove that, okay? Data validation, let's clear that there. We don't need data validation there. All we do need is a link, okay? You see, this is a link to customers, okay? And if you have more, you can just continue down, all right? And what I've done is I've put all types on top of here, just the text all types, okay? So then on this data, what I've done is I've captured this and I've given this a new data validation over here, and that's basically linked to this, and it's linked to all these. So you can increase that as you wish, and that will make sure to include the all types, because you may want to send it to all your customers regardless. So this gives us an option. Okay, and we've got a few settings here. We've got a loading of the campaign. We need to know whether a campaign is new or not. And the reason we want to do that is when we select a new campaign, you'll see this goes to true. Now, what I want to do is I want to enter a campaign name, test, right? And then enter a few, and then I want to be able to save that, right? And I can save that, with different options, of course, with either save and send or send now. However, on an existing campaign, I don't necessarily want to use the save button. I just want to update the details automatically. So if I want to change this to the customer type from lead to prospect, you'll see it changes automatically down here in the field. And we went over that how to save automatically in the last training under the automatic tab, save, and load. So you might want to look that up, because we're going to go over quickly on that feature today. But basically what it is the details up here automatically get saved. If it's an existing campaign, it gets saved automatically. So when I change this send on date to 11/8, right, you'll see automatically changes here in the table. And of course we can change it in the table as well, but there are definitely reasons why you want to save it on the top as well. You have more flexibility, especially with the message and subject. You've got the ability to display the messages, and so it's really beneficial for you. So we have that, as well as we'll change the time as well. And so the idea here is to basically, when the when the new is off, when it's false, that means we don't have a specified row just yet. If it's a new campaign, we haven't assigned a row. Okay, once we save it, we can assign a row. Okay, so that's the reason we need to mark this as false, because we don't know until we save it, and then it's taken the row at the bottom. So let's go ahead and see how this works. Let's go into the VBA code from your Developers tab, Visual Basic, or under the Properties if you don't have that. Alt F11 will get you there. All right, let's go into the VBA. Here we go. And as you can see, we've got actually 5 different macros here. All right, and they each provide a specific performance. Okay, and in our previous, we went over how to highlight selected rows. We've gone over that in detail, so please look back on that because we've done that. Basically, it's a conditional formatting based on the selected row, and our selected row is right here. So if we change this row to 14, you'll see it drops down 1. So that's how that works. So I've gone over that in detail, so I want to get to some other stuff on this particular training. And so here in our customer sheet, we don't have any macros. In our campaigns, we have some macros. And basically the idea is what I want to do is when it's a previously saved campaign, what I want to do is when I change it here, I want to change it below. When I change it here, I want it to change here automatically. Okay. If I follow up, if I change it here. So the reason is I want to be able to map that basically. We want to be able to map this field with this column here. And we went over that also in the last one. So, but basically I've done that here, right? Column 4, column 6, column 5, column 8, and so on, right? So these are the columns, right? And we know that those are the columns simply by equals column, okay? We know that's column 4, right? And if we drag this over, we know what the columns are. So if we make a change to this, I know we've got to change the column 4 and the row is 15. Okay, so we know what column row, so we know what changed because I've mapped that out. Okay, back into the VBA, basically what we're saying is if there's a change to let me go ahead and pull the headings up so we can see what's going on here. If there's a change to E3 to E5, E3 to E5, if there's a change to either one of these, what do I want to happen? Okay, change. If there's a change, okay, not a selection change, a change. If we make a change, I want to say the cells, the row B5, and the column. Remember I showed you that map column? The row and the column equal the target value. Okay, row 15, column 4. Okay, that's all we're doing. Is what we're doing is mapping data. We're basically telling Excel where it should save the data, and that's what I've done on all 3 of these. I've just mapped them out. Okay, when you get your copy, you can go through it, and basically it says is B2 does not equal true, and what B2 is saying it's not a new, right? This is not a new campaign. Remember, new campaigns we haven't assigned a row, so we don't know where to put it yet until the user actually saves it, right? So we want to make sure this is only on existing campaigns. So new campaign, it's not a new campaign. And B1, remember, it's a false. That means we're not loading any other campaign. If there's a change, for example, when we load a campaign, we don't want to provide a loop where there's a change to this and it goes back and forth. So that false helps us keep us from looping out, okay, from going in loops. The next up, the selection change is what we discussed earlier, and basically what we're saying is, if the user has selected more than one cell, then just exit out. Otherwise, if we do that, it's going to provide a bug. All right, but that line of code, if target count is greater than 1, then exit sub. This keeps that bug from going on. Okay, if a user selects any field, any cell within that table, D11 to K100, and D in the target row is not empty, meaning if we select any cell here and this is not empty, D, that means there's a campaign, right? We can't load, if there's nothing here, there's nothing to load up here, right? So we need to make sure, okay, there's at least a campaign name. So if we select it, we're going to say, okay, we want to load it. When we select within this table, that's one condition. And the second condition is there must be something in column D, okay? So those are the 2 conditions, right? So once those 2 conditions are met, we can then go ahead and load that. What we want to do is we want to put B5 in the target row in that field, and that's going to help us highlight that row. Remember, with conditional formatting, we are going to set B2 as false as to the loading, and that is it's no longer a new, because we've loaded an existing campaign. It's no longer, like for example, if we click new, right? this goes to true, new campaign, right? But if we select it, it's no longer, and we've loaded a previously created one, so we got to mark that as false. It's no longer a new campaign anymore. We want to differentiate between those two. So B2 is false. D and the target row, it does not equal empty. That means it's just confirming that this is an actual campaign that we've selected. Then we can load the this is the macro that loads the campaign, and let's go into that macro right here, and it's campaign load right here. Okay, and all this is a very simple macro that we're saying the campaign row is equal to B5 value. Okay, and then all we're going to doing is basically taking each of these values and putting it up here, taking this value and putting it here, taking this value and putting it here. So we're doing basically all those values and just bringing them up to the top. So that's all we're doing with campaign load. Okay, and then it's we want to make sure that this new campaign is loaded up. We want, like for example, when we select a new campaign, we're going to hide that button because they've already on a new campaign, right? So, but if they select an existing campaign, we need to show that button again. They might want to create a new one. So with this line of code, shapes, new campaign visible, right? Shapes, that displays this. You see this when we click here? You see new campaign button, okay? So that line displays that, right? So that's how we get that to load. And the loading macro is extremely simple on that, okay? And the next up is campaign save, okay? And what this does, when we've created a campaign, we need to save it. So all we're doing here is, one, we're making sure that the user has entered values, okay? E3, E5, or H5. If those are empty, we're going to say, hey, please enter those fields before we save. So we exit out of that. So if we create a new campaign and we don't enter enough information, and we try to save and send it, it's going to say, hey, please fill in all the required fields. Okay. And one thing that you can do, one thing that you can do, we don't need that. We got to exit out. That's a mistake by me. Let me show you what I did. So basically, after that message box, we need to exit out of it. We need to exit out of that macro. So let's go ahead and write that now. Okay, we need to make sure that we're exiting out. After that message box, we need to make sure that we exit all the subs, and it's going to this one here. So we can just do end, and that's going to end everything. Okay, and then any other scheduled macros won't run after that line instead of exit sub. Okay, and the same thing. So basically, what's happening is when we schedule it, this is running. Okay, so we don't want that to run, so we want to end all that. And so the idea is that when we save it, we want to make sure those are required. And one thing you can do is I like to do a little conditional formatting. If there are required fields, we can just do something like hold down the Control Home. We can go into conditional formatting, and we can create a new rule and format the cells. And if they're blanks, okay, if they're blanks, a great way to let the user know, hey, that's required. It's a little bit bright for a yellow there. And let's go into a lighter yellow. Okay, so we can put like a yellow. So that's kind of a good reminder that, hey, these things need to be filled in. So once they're filled in, they go to white. So that's a really helpful hint as far as how to create the reminder that those cells need values. Okay, so back into our VBA. The next thing we're defining our campaign row, and then we're simply going to go down. We got to find the first available row. We want to save that campaign, but we want to save it all the way at the bottom. Okay, so we need to find the first available row. We're going to use the required field, which is campaign name, which is column D, and then we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to look for the first cell, and we're going to put in this row here. In order to get that, we'll use this one line of code, which is .range D9999 .end XLF row +1. This is the last row. Okay, we don't want to overwrite the last row. We want to add one. Okay. So this is the last row. We want to make sure we add one. So we want to put it in that blank row right there, which is why we've added the +1. The remaining macros are simply mapping the specific field to the row. So we've gone E3, and then this is the campaign row D. So if we're placing all these fields and we have 20 as our next row, it's going to put the campaign name in D20. It's going to put the created on in from H from H3 to H20, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a straightforward just mapping there. It's another way to map row. And the last thing, what I've done is I've added a row, and this is important, and we'll get to this later. And what this does is it puts a formula in the last column, and we'll go ahead and show you that. I'm going to slide over, and I'm going to change the font color to black so that those become visible. And you'll see here that we've defined the row, and all this is a straight formula to give us the row. And the reason we do that, I'll explain a little bit later why we need to mark that, is basically when we run an advanced filter, okay, when we run an advanced filter, when we specifically are filtering our campaigns, we need to know what is the original row. Okay, so all those campaigns is going to be here because we're going to filter them out. And I need to know what is the original row, what is the row in this table, so when we make changes we know what row. And that's the reason for that. Okay, so that's quite helpful, and I'll show you how to do that. So back into our VBA we go, and then basically all I want to do is, once we've saved it, I want to give the user the ability to create a new campaign. So I want to display that new campaign button again. All right, that is how we do that. And next up is the campaign send. So we'll go ahead and why don't we go ahead and with the add new. All right, we'll go ahead with that. And in this, when we're adding a new campaign, all we're doing is we're going to set the campaign to true. We're going to set this to true so we know it's a new campaign. Okay, B2 to true. Okay, we're going to clear out the contents of all of the existing fields within the campaign, so we're ready for a new. Since we are in a new campaign, we don't need to show the new campaign button anymore because they aren't a new. We wouldn't want them to click it twice. So this kind of hides the new campaign and it lets them know that they're kind of in new campaign mode. Okay, and it makes sure that both buttons are visible as far as the save and send. It's okay, but not necessary because we don't really hide them in this area, but sometimes we may hide them when we add in future macros. And what we want to do is we want to set for new campaigns, we want to set the initial status to pending. Okay, we want to set that initial status, and H3 equals B3, and what that does is that says H3 equals B3. What that does is it takes our current date today, which is just a formula of today, and it puts it on so that we default the created on as the current date. So you get to know that what date it was created. So that's kind of helpful. It kind of sets the default. You could change this, of course, but it kind of sets the default to the current date. One less thing that a user has to enter. And that's it for the add new campaign macro. It's quite straightforward. And so when we click the new campaign, boom, we get that. And that is how we have a default of status of pending. We get the created on date, and everything else is cleared out. And now we know what fields are required. All right. So that is it for those macros. Back into the VBA module we go, and then we have the campaign send. Let's go ahead and go into the send, and this one's a little bit more involved, so we'll go over that. And basically the idea is that I want to take the information from this particular campaign. I want to figure out if we're going to send it to all the contacts or if we're just going to send it to a particular contact or customer. And then what I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter, and I want to know two things. I want to know all of the customers who fit two arguments. One, if we're sending it out to let's say leads, okay, let's say this one, let's say we're sending it out to leads. What I want to do is I want to filter all my contacts. I want to put an advanced filter of leads, and of course I always only want to make sure that we're going to create emails for only those customers who have opted into our emails. So I want to make sure these are the two conditions. Okay, so we're going to run an advanced filter, and an advanced filter is basically going to take all of our data from here. Okay, it's going to filter it out based on these two options. Okay, these two details, and then it's going to filter, and it's going to put our filter results in a different area. Okay, and it's going to put it right here. Okay, so that is what I'm looking for, and that's what we're going to do through VBA. And then once we have this information, I want to go through each one of them, and I'm going to create an email based on the details of this campaign, based on this subject, based on this message. Okay, and that's it. It's pretty simple. And so let's go ahead and go over that. All right. What we're doing first, we are going to define the campaign row. The campaign row is B5 because that's the one we've selected. Okay. And the current date we know is B4. Okay, let's go ahead and over. We know the current date is B4, so we're defining that. Our campaign name is in D and the campaign row. Sending it to, right? Remember, this is the sending it to. The customer type is in F and the campaign row. Okay, F in the campaign row, D in the campaign row. Okay, so we're just basically defining the information based on the specific campaign. And what I want to do here is I want to say if the send to equals all types, then the send to equals blank, right? Because if it's all types, right, I don't want to, when I go ahead and filter those customers, I don't want to put all types here because there is no customer name all type, right? I want to leave it blank, right? So that means all the customers. So basically what we were saying is if it's all type, then this is going to be blank. And that's going to help us generate that proper filter, okay? So we have that. Then next, we're going to go into sheet 1 and we're going to clear out any previous advanced filters. Okay, so we do that. What I want to do is just in case there's older, I want to clear this all this information out, all of this, right? These are the advanced filters. So if we were going to wanted a specific name or specific address, we would filter it here. So we're going to clear this out and we're going to clear all this data out because when we filter again, I want to make sure it's clear. So that's why we're clearing out the advanced. So we're clearing those lines out. And then what we're doing is we're saying, okay, sheet 1 equals the send to. Sheet 1 AJ2 equals yes, right? So we're putting this information into the advanced filter. AI2 equals the send to, which is lead. AJ2 equals yes. So that sets our filters, okay? Then all we need to do is we need to determine what the last customer row is. When we filter this customer, we need to filter all the data, but I don't want to filter any more than all the data. So I want to go only to the last row being E here, 19. I want to know this last row is 19. So when we run our advanced filter, we need to know what to run it until. So this gives us our last row, okay? And then we're going to also set the log row. We also want to know when we go into the log row, we also want to know when we add names to the log row, we need to know what the last row of the log is too, because we're going to add that too. So we want to know that. Let me go ahead and delete this old data. We don't need to see that here, okay? It's unnecessary because we're going to be adding to it. And so we want to know what the last log row is because we need to add to the end of that. And then we run our advanced filter. Our advanced filter is very, very important. We went over to last and I'll run it again. So first of all, the first part is what are we filtering? Okay, what is the original data we're filtering? E4 through N in the last customer row. That is the original data. E4 because it must include the headers. E4 through N and the last row. This is the data that we want to filter. Okay. And then what do we want to do? We're going to copy it. Okay, we want to make a copy of it. We don't want to filter it in place, right? I want to copy it to a new range. Okay. And then it says, okay, well the next thing is what is the criteria? In other words, what do you want to filter by? Okay? And remember those are those two rows, AA1 through AJ2. That is this here. AA1 through AJ2. Here is our criteria. That means that's going to tell us what we want to filter by. Okay. And then the last part of it, copy to, we want to copy it to sheet 1, AA3 to AJ3. We want to copy it. We want to copy all that data right to here. Okay, right to here. And that's gonna give us our data. And then we want unique. We want unique values only. Okay. So that's it. Now, once it runs that filter, now we need to know our last row. Now we need to know the last row. We need to know how far it's going to go. So we need to know how. So our last row of filter data is, in this case, it's row 7. So we need to get that value, 7, right? So we're going to call that our last filter row. And our last filter row is each C1 AA and XLF row. Okay. And then we're saying here is if the last filter row is less than 4, that means there's no data. We don't need to run through this. If nothing came up on our filter, right, and and there's nothing here, so that means our last row is less than 4. It's probably 3. If it's 3, that means there's no data. So what we're saying is please just skip all of this, then go to no customer. And what I've done here is all the way out. Once it completes it, it's going to exit the sub. And then after that exit sub, we have no customer, and it just says no customers met the requirements. So just a little message box knowing why no emails were sent, because there were no customers in the filter row. So at least you have a message box knowing why it didn't happen. Okay, because maybe no customers met those specifications. Maybe everybody's opted out, or you have a customer type that nobody has, or something like that. All right, so that's it. That's how we run that advanced filter. And now we're ready. Once we have the list of people to send, now it's just a for next loop. For the customer row equals 4 to the last row. 4 to the last row. We need to loop through rows 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and we need to grab the information. And you'll see here we have all the information for the customer, including their email address. Let me open that up so you can see, and then phone number, customer type, everything got transferred over there. So we have our last name, AA, right? We have our first name, AB. We have our email, AG, right? First name, last name, email, AG. Okay, so we just need to capture that and put it in variables, which we've done with these 3 lines. The subject and the message are coming from the campaign. Okay, subject here, message here. Okay, subject is in column J with the row, and the message is in column K. Okay, so we know where those variables are stored, and the reason we have these replaced. So here is our original. Right here, you see that part, range J, and here, let me highlight. This is our subject, but we want to make sure that we replace any parts where we put first name or last name, right? In variables, we want to replace that with the actual names. So this replace, right? That means what we're saying is replace, when you see this first name, replace it with the actual first name. When you find this last name, replace it with the actual last name. Okay, remember, last name is stored in variables. So we're defining the subject, and we're replacing the values in case we've added first name, right? Well, if we've added first name, we don't want to see first name, we want to see the actual first name, right? So that replace covers us. So that replaces it, that personalizes those emails with their actual first name. And you can personalize any detail. You'll see more detail in our birthday emails. We had a training on the birthday emails, so we covered that in a lot of detail on as far as replace. We've got a lot of fields to replace there. So we've done that for both subject and messages. Next, we have the creating the Outlook email with these 2 lines. And we're saying with the Outlook email, send it to who? To the email. We've defined that already. Subject, the message. And this line of code is, if sheet 2 B6 equals true, then display the emails. If it's not true, then send it. Okay, remember we have this here, display emails. Now this particular option box is tied to B6, right? If you right click that and you go to format control, you'll see the cell link is B6. Okay, so what we're saying is we want them displayed. If this is true, then display. If not, then send them. So this gives us the option. For our purposes, we're going to be displaying it because I want you to be able to see that, and I don't want to send out any emails to anybody right now. So we're going to go ahead and keep that displayed. So display, dot display if it's true, dot send if you wanted to send without showing those emails. And then the rest is simply a few lines of cleanup. We're ending the email, and then we're going to clean up, and that's it. And then these 4 lines, we've already actually adds the information to the log where we want to know what was sent. The email logs. We've already defined the last row of the log. We know what that is, right? Because we've searched for that. Now all we need to do is plug in the information into the log. Okay. D and the log row equals campaign name, first name, the current date, subject, message. So basically we're taking all the information from the email and we're putting it in specific lines. Okay, and then we're adding one more to the log row. So that means the next time we add the next time we go, we're going to go one down, one down, one down. That way it doesn't replace it. So we didn't use a for next loop on this one since we're already going for next on the customer row, so we can just add one log row. That means the next time we add a new customer to the log row, it'll already be on the, it increase the log rows by 1. All right, and that is it. That's how, and then it loops through. Basically, this loops through all four, in this case, all four of our customers, and then it completes. And then on completion, what we want to do is we want to send that campaign status to sent. So G camp row equals sent. We want to mark that campaign as sent, and we want to know, and then that's it. That is everything you need to know on the send now campaign. Okay, and let's say we want to schedule it. Okay. And the next up is scheduling. So let's go ahead and go over that. When we're scheduling applications, basically the idea is what I want to do is I want to take all these campaigns here and I want to filter them. I want to know which ones are pending and which ones are scheduled for the current date. Those are the two information I want. I want to know which ones are still pending and which ones are scheduled for today. Okay, so I want those two things are very important. And again, we can do that with an advanced filter. So if we slide over to the right, we see an advanced filter. And we'll do the same things we did customers. We have our advanced filter here, and we have two variables, which one is pending and which one is sent on today. Okay. Both of these are very, very important, okay? We don't, if it's been sent, we don't need to know it. And if it's scheduled after today or before today, we don't need to know that. So we just need to know pending. You may want to add something like less than or equal, okay? Less than or equal today. You could do that as well. And if you were to do that, then, or I think you need an and sign here. But if you were to do that, then in case you missed a campaign, let's say you didn't come in on Saturday or Sunday and you didn't run Excel, and maybe you had a campaign scheduled for yesterday and it didn't run. So if you were to add less than or equal to and pending, that means let's say yesterday, it's still pending, it was scheduled for yesterday but it didn't run. So adding less than or equal to would solve that problem. Then it would be any dates today or before that are pending. So that would help, that addition would help solve that problem in case you don't run Excel daily or something like that. And so the idea is basically, so any campaigns, I want them listed right here. Okay, and we can do that again with the advanced filter. And again, the last campaign row, to run an advanced filter, we need to know what the last campaign row is. So again, the last campaign row in this case will be 19. So we're going to use column D because each campaign has a campaign name and it's required. So D, in this case, it'll be 19. So we'll go ahead and run, get that last campaign row. We're going to clear out any previous filters, advanced filters, just like we did in customer. Okay. We're going to add this pending, right? Remember AD2, we need to know which ones are pending, and we're going to put in AE2 the current date, and I just showed you that, and current date is B3 again. Okay, so that means only campaigns scheduled for the current date. And again, you could do something like this, less than or equal to, right? Excuse me, less than or equal to, like this, and okay, and that's what and if you did that, that would be for any campaigns that were previous that were missed. For our purposes, we'll keep it simple. We'll just go for the current date. Okay, and then in D10, and here's our advanced filter. We're going to take that entire D10 through L in the last campaign row. Okay, D10, including the headers, always including the headers, all the way to the row. The row is very important, and we'll go over that in a minute. Okay, and so basically all the way to the last row. So we're going to pull that data. We're going to give it an advanced filter. We're going to copy it over, copy it to range, and we're going to filter that range AA1 where our filters are set to AI2. Then we're going to copy it to range AA3, okay, and unique. So just like I showed you, we're going to run the advanced filter here, and then we're going to want the details here, okay. So, and the next one I'm saying, this is basically wrap text, and the reason is when we run the advanced filter, you'll see that, let me go ahead and pull that up for you. You will see that if this is a large information, all of a sudden our rows get really big, right? All of a sudden our rows look like that. So all I did was I run I just run set the row heights automatically on that one. So that's why that line of code is there, because that helps us. Basically, it says don't wrap the text. So that kind of keeps all the rows with the same height, which is kind of helpful in this case. The next is saying if AA4 is empty, then exit sub. If this line is empty, that means we haven't filtered. There are no campaigns that are pending that are sent on the current date. So we don't need to go through anything else if there's nothing there, right? So if AA4 value equals empty, then exit sub. Okay, we don't need to go further because there is no data. If there is data, we're going to set the campaign row. We need to know what the campaign row. So let's assume there is data here, okay? And all right, in this campaign here, we have it set it as pending, and for 9 p.m. on the current date today. So if we click save and schedule, okay, it'll automatically schedule. Nothing happens because it's not 9 o'clock yet. We're still an hour away from that. But you can see here in the advanced filter, we have this campaign, and we need to know what the row is, what the original row is, because we need to mark this. When it's sent, I need to mark this. I need to know what row we're going to run at. When 9 o'clock comes around in 1 hour, I need to know what campaign row. So what I've done here is I put the campaign row right here. So 9 o'clock comes around, it's going to pull this campaign row. It's going to know exactly which campaign to run, and it's going to know which campaign to mark as sent so that it doesn't run again. So let's go over in the code how that's done. Okay, in the code here, once we've defined the campaign row, we're going to place. What we need to know is one. Okay, we know that this it's pending, and we know that the send on is today's date. But the send time. Now, what if the time is passed? If that time is past the current time, the campaign should be sent. If the time is in the future of the current time, we should schedule it. Okay, so we'll do that with an if statement. Okay, and we can do that right here. If AE4, okay, AE4 is the time. AF4, AE plus F4, the current date plus the current time in Excel. So AE4, current date, plus AF4, the current time. In Excel, right, a date doesn't have any time itself. The date plus the time is the actual current time. So it's in decimal format, okay? Let me show you what that means, okay? Equals now, okay? Now is the current date and the current time, right? But if you go into format, right, and you go into numbers, you're going to see 43046.84, okay? And if we actually extend those decimals a little bit, you're going to see a little bit more detail. 43046, that's the current date. 0.835 is the current time. So in actuality, they get added together. They get added together to create the actual time. That's how it's done in Excel. And when you format that, as a time or a date, you can format that as a time and show just the time. You can format that as the date and show only the date, okay? Or you can format them as both, right, and show it as time and date. Under number formatting, right, we can show both. Okay, so that is how that works. So basically the idea is the date plus the time equals the current date and time. Okay, so it's mathematically they're added together. That's why we've plus. Okay, and what I'm saying is if this is less than now, the current now is the current date and current time, then go ahead and run that right now. Okay, so then what we're going to say is D in the campaign row select. So what I want to actually do is I want to select D. I want to click, I want VBA to click right here, boom. And what that's going to do is going to load all of the campaign details up here, so we know the campaign details, okay? So that means we want to run it right now, okay? And then I'm going to go to campaign, send now. Remember, this is the thing, send now. And then what we want to do is after it's been sent out, what I want to do is I want to run this filter again to see if there's any more campaigns on today that we may have missed. Maybe there's more. So it'll keep running this under the current day. Maybe we have 2 or 3 campaigns set for the same day, but it's only going to do one. It's going to run this one, and it's going to check for others until they're all gone. So the idea is to run the scheduled emails filter until they're all gone for the current date. Okay. The else, that means, okay, if the time is greater, right? If the emails are set to send after the current time, then we need to schedule it, and we can do that with this one line of code. Okay, first, before we do that, we need to know what campaign are we, when we're going to run the campaigns. We need to know what is the campaign row, what are the details. So we set that on B7. Okay, so that's going to tell us what campaign to run. Okay, so we put the campaign right here. The next scheduled campaign to run is on row 17. So we've done that, and then we're going to say application on time, okay? And what is the time? The time is AF4, okay? That's like 9 o'clock p.m., 9 p.m., AF4, run what, okay? And the reason we have the format is Excel on time format, they can only read things in actual time format. So we got to format this value into hours, minutes, seconds. So that'll tell Excel what time to run it, and then this tells it what to run. Send schedule is the macro that's going to run on this time. Okay, that's a really powerful thing that we use on time for. Application on time is a great thing. Basically, all it does is saying run this at this time, and as long as Excel is running, it'll send it on that time. Okay, so, and then send scheduled, and send scheduled is basically a very tiny macro, and basically what we want to do is we want to send it, but we need to know what we're going to send, what macro we're going to send. So all we're going to do is we're going to, in send scheduled, we're going to find what row we're supposed to be sending. Remember, B7 is the row. Here's the row, the macro, right? B7, which is here, right? Well, I want to take that and I want to select it, right? I want to do it automatically so that macro gets loaded, right? Select, right? And then I'm going to run the send now, and then I'm going to schedule. So after the send now, I'm going to schedule to see if there's any more emails. And that's pretty much it. That is how everything works in this. It is not too complicated. It's relatively simple, but I've put them in 5 separate workbooks. You can really build a lot. There's a lot more features. You can add attachments. You can do a lot more with this code. In fact, let me go ahead and open up one of my applications so you can see exactly what potential this has. And I'll go ahead and open up one of my multi-staff schedulers so that you can see the kind of potential that these automated emails have. And in this particular application that I'm opening now is a multi-staff scheduler in which we schedule people up to 4 staff. And it's a very large application. We've got a list of contacts, staff, we have staff scheduling, and we have email automation. Okay, and let me go ahead and zoom that out a little bit. And basically, this is a really built up email automation where we have tons of variables, right? And for each different type of appointment you select, the variables change. There's tons of different triggers, meaning I want this email to be sent on a specific trigger. For example, a contact birthday, a new invoice saved, a new contact referred, unpaid invoice due date. So there's so many triggers that there's so much potential for this. Just look at all these potential. Let me zoom that in so you can see it. It's very hard to see. Okay, so take a look at these triggers. So basically this email automation is built up on all these triggers. So when one of these things happen, an email gets sent out, right? We can do full campaigns like email invoice button, canceled work order. So the idea of this email automation can be huge, and it can be worked into any type of application. And in this case, we've built a large a large email. We can resume emails, we can add news, we can even replicate campaigns, we can add multiple attachments, we can use different field names. So the potential of this is massive. And in this particular application is a scheduling application where we basically schedule, like you can have up to 4 staff, and you can schedule appointments based on these staff. So if you have a specific new patient, and you can schedule a patient here, and then you can click on that and all the information for that contact shows up here. You can view invoices, history, and if you remember, we have an inline. Remember we showed you inline? Here's another example of inline controls where you can have an invoice history, and if you want to view the invoice, you can view the invoice here. And if you want to make a payment, you can click. So here's another feature of inline icons that we went through on another lesson. So the potential of the email automation is really, really huge. So I wanted you to see what the potential could be on that. So I will make sure to include this workbook for you. I hope you have enjoyed this training lesson. Thank you very much for watching this entire lesson, and all I ask is that you please share the video with your friends on your wall or in your favorite group. Thank you so much for joining me today.